I saw something on Facebook recently there, and a fella posted a video of training his dog, and I just saw some of the comments on it, and I thought people were a little bit, not so much critical, but they were experting a little bit. And I know we had this conversation with Adam Sharkey and Eamon Connell, or Blackie as we call him. We had a bit of a conversation about the biggest mistake in dog training, where you think you know a bit more than you do. But I also see that it's kind of a common thing that when people learn a little bit, they can get a little bit preachy there and a little bit experty. And that's what I saw in that video on Facebook. So what I'd like to just bring your awareness to a little bit is that all this dog training really, it's just incremental little steps. And that's the important thing. It's incremental little steps. And we get one step on and then we move on to the next. And then it's important to push on and move on to the next. But there's a lot of paradoxes in dog training. So what I'm trying to say to you is, on one hand, don't get too bogged down into detail. And then on the other hand, you still have to kind of study the detail and pay attention to the small things. So you've got all these sort of paradoxes. Wait there now, and I'll think of another one. I'm going to press pause here. Oh yeah, so like my buddy Mick Crow now is a fella who'll tell you, the most important thing is to have a good stop on your dog. And so, well, it is very important to have a good stop on your dog. But the trouble with this dog training stuff is, Dean asked me, you know, like, when do you want a good stop when you're gathering sheep, or if you can't see your dog, well then do you want a good stop? So the good stop is only a real important thing if you don't have a good stop. So this is another one of those kind of paradoxes. So yes, it is the most important thing, but then no, it's not the most important thing. So this little bit, it's hard to kind of formulate my thoughts on this, but there's a lot of things that at a point in your dog training, it's the most important thing. So at a point in your training, clean flanks isn't the most important thing, but then when you make more progress, suddenly clean flanks is the most important thing. And so you have to work on that. And so that's what I mean by it's a whole lot of incremental training. And so sometimes you'll be ignoring maybe 3 faults in your dog, or the way your dog is working, while you work on one fault, or while you work on one thing that you want to get clear to your dog. And so I'm sort of worried here that this conversation is going to make you more confused and not really offer you any kind of solution. But that's the trouble with dog training, with sheep dog training anyway, that there's a whole lot of stuff that's the most important thing right now. But when you move on a bit, then it's not the most important thing. It's irrelevant, kind of. So I know that's no help at all whatsoever, Paddy. That's, you know, why did I sign up to this Patreon thing there? All they're doing is confusing me and telling me it's important, and then it's not important. But you better stay signed up. Maybe it'll get a bit clearer. But that's probably why, I mean, we spend hours talking and thinking about dogs, and we're a bit obsessed with training dogs, and so we get into fierce amount of detail. But just going back to that fella on Facebook, he had a dog in the video, and the dog was just running it around and rings like you would lunge a horse. He didn't even change direction too much. And I know what he was doing. All he was doing was just burning off some of the energy. For me, it's not probably that he could burn it off a bit better, but it's grand. You know, it's just running around. And somebody messaged me from the US, you know, a well-respected trainer, a very accomplished handler, and blah blah. And they said to me, you know, would you look at this thing? It's ridiculous. And I was thinking, well, it's not really ridiculous, because all he's doing is burning off the energy off the dog. Then he wants the dog to stop. So if he tires him out, well, it's a lot easier to stop a tired dog. So all he's doing really is setting it up to win, setting it up. I don't want to mention the fella in the video or whatever, but he was just setting it up to win, setting it up to make let the dog tire himself out, so that then it's much easier to stop him. You don't have to be fighting so much. If the dog is tired, he'll want to stop anyway. And so, but that's one little Mickey Mouse step that he'll do maybe 3, maybe 5 times that week, and maybe he won't ever do that again in that particular dog's life, because all he's doing is he's just using it to get a stop. So he's using it to get something else, and then he'll move on. And so I said to that US handler, well, yeah, but I mean, in theory, that's what we all do. And then you move on to the next step and on to the next step. And that guy in the video, you won't see him doing that with that dog anymore, you'll see him, he'll move on and he'll have the dog out in the open and he'll have him stopping and he'll be working on something else. And in 3 or 4 weeks' time, he'll have that dog trained. And I saw people putting on comments about, you know, not letting the dog balance and so, yeah, that's correct. But it's not correct at this stage. It's not necessary at this stage. And that's what I mean by he's ignoring all that bullshit about, you know, balance and feel and all. Because that's not relevant. All he's working on is getting a stop. So, and he's not going to do the dog any harm. The dog, you're not going to take away the dog's balance in 10 lessons or anything. You need to be at that for a year, really, if the dog has balance. You need to be at it for a long time to take it out. So, that's the only other thing I'd say to you. If you've got a good, keenish dog, they'll let you make a lot of mistakes. And that's why I like good, keen dogs, because they're very forgiving, because all they want is to work. And so if you've been messing up the training for a while, well, that's okay. The dog will keep doing it. And he'd say, I'll keep doing it until you get it right. I'll give you another chance. And that's why I don't like those dogs that, you know, like I talk about the dope heads. I don't like those dogs that you have to say please or you have to coax them to work or anything like that. Because I need a dog that'll let me make mistakes while we work it out and we get there incrementally. So, yeah, thanks, Paddy, for that big, long-winded conversation about nothing. Anyway, back to the update thing. We'll get working on Glyn Jones's book. Sorry if things are a bit slow or if it's a little bit frustrating, or for some of you, it might be a little bit late getting back with the messages. You'd be amazed. I don't know where all the time goes. It just gets sucked up into this and that and the other. And then I've been trying to work as well lately. Work's starting to warm up again. And so I was trying to squeeze in a bit of that too. But I mean, it's like trying to do stuff with one hand tied behind your back all the time. So looking forward to my wife getting home now and not having to think about what I'm going to cook for dinner every night. And I'll have lots of those. I'll have a lot more time for tricking around with dogs and things like that. And a bit of luck now, I'll get over to deer play. And if we get to deer play, no doubt, we'll make a few videos on the way with Con and Ger, and maybe we'll meet some handlers in the UK that we might make a few clips with or something too. And so that's the update about nothing really. And any questions as usual, any questions you have, even if I'm a bit slow or blind, ask me in the comments or message me. And anything you want to know or any problems you're having in your dog training, if you want to send me a video there, that's fine. I like when people send me videos sometimes, if to say, Paddy, you know, having a little bit of an issue here. But if you just try and keep the video, make sure it's in landscape mode, because when it's in landscape mode, you can see more. You can see the dog and the sheep together when you look at the video, and you can see what's going on. I don't like these portrait ones, kind of show you nothing. Show you the dog or the sheep, but it doesn't give you the picture when I'm looking at it. And then the other thing is, if you keep it to about 60 seconds, because 60 seconds, you know, a few glimpses of whatever the problem is, usually tell me what's going on for you. So that's the whole deal anyway. And I'm sure we could be doing stuff a lot better, but we'll keep trying to do it some way anyway. And that's the way my dog training is too. Could be doing it better probably, but we keep doing a bit anyway, and sure we'll get there. Thanks everyone.